was how to move through the world. How to move through the world. See, at home, my mom created a stable, safe environment, space of unconditional love, of fun, of creativity, and of really, really, really good food. And she still does that. She can still do that. She makes the meanest cheese souffle ever. That's what I had for my birthday dinner. So my mom created that at home. Created this space that I could grow and develop in. And periodically, my father would take me with him to work downtown. He, with his briefcase, his hat, and his overcoat. We'd drive downtown together, and we'd walk down the main boulevard, Euclid Avenue. It was packed with people. And it seemed to me that every third person we met said, "Hi, Bob. Is this your son?" I was so proud to be his son. And he would introduce us. Now, mind you, my mother had previously taught me how to shake hands. She taught me to stand tall, head high, to make direct eye contact, extend my arm, give a firm shake, not too short, not too long, and say, "A pleasure to meet you, sir. A pleasure to meet you, ma'am." My mom created a space of awareness for me, and my father helped me to move into it. They worked as a team. They were the very expression of the dance of the divine feminine and the divine masculine. The dance of the divine masculine and the divine feminine is going on in you right now, in every one of us, in every one of us. And we are most alive, we are most engaged when we are conscious of both and how they move in us, the part they play in us, and we honor both parts, both parts. In India, the images of the divine masculine and the divine feminine are everywhere in the most public places. The divine feminine is the circle called the yoni. It represents space. The divine masculine is the lingam. It represents time. when time intersects space, as the lingam intersects the yoni, that the universe is born, that we are born, that you are born. It is at that time, literally, that everything comes into being. It's also that time at which spirit is individualized, which is very joyful, because spirit individualized allows me to see you, and you, and you, and you, and all you guys in between. The space is created. Time moves through it. The space-time continuum that physicists speak of is creation. It's how the invisible becomes visible. It's very real. Now, there's an essential part of the divine masculine that I think is sometimes gently, benignly overlooked or overshadowed. You see, we live very busy lives, very busy lives. We can end up very much in our heads. And as a result of that, so many of us on this path, the path that we share, this path of understanding of the divine and who we are in relation to the divine, one and the same. We honor the Divine Mother. We honor the space. But it is so important to honor the divine masculine as well. There's an aspect of the divine masculine that is not always spoken to. It's often referred to as time, especially now by physicists. Physicists who understand the Hindu concepts that underlie it. Philosophers and physicists for ages have philosophized and theorized that movement creates time. Think about it. Movement creates time. I can't say it's been proven yet. I don't know if it ever will be. But it makes sense to me that time and movement are inseparable. And so the divine masculine can be seen as movement in the world. We often hear peace, be still. Be still and know that I am God. It's one of my favorite affirmations. We know that God works in the stillness, and yet God also is in our movement. God is as much in our movement as God is in our stillness. This is why spiritual teachers of all times have radically fed, radically led for human social justice and equality, and radically healed. They radically fed, led, and healed. See, they all prayed, and they all meditated, and they all moved in the world. They all did their work in the world. This is what we must do. Pray, meditate, and move. It's also the fifth principle of unity, that it is not enough simply to know the truth. Not enough to know the truth, but we must demonstrate the truth, act out the truth that we know in every moment. It's what we're called to do and be. We have stereotypes of the feminine and the masculine in our culture. There are stereotypes of these two in every culture. In ours, we might say something like, women listen and talk about their feelings. Men, not so much, but they do a lot of things. stereotypes come from? That's I was talking with a friend of mine just a couple days ago, and on the phone, and she shared with me that she was feeling conflicted about her career. So I asked, "What's conflicting you?" She said, "Do you have 5 hours?" I said, "I have about 4 minutes." She said, 4 minutes? That puts me in prison. You might as well bind and gag me. Well, she started to share. You see, I have 4 minutes until my next stop. She started to share. And as she shared, I listened. And as I got to my next stop, I kept on listening. And when she concluded her thought, she said, or I said to her, "I hear you, and now I have to go." She asked, "Is my 4 minutes up?" I said 4 plus 10. So I think this demonstrates effectively that we men can learn to embrace the divine feminine. Yes. I think it's easy. I chose that. See, these elements of the divine feminine that creates space for creation, and the divine masculine that moves through that space, they're in every one of us. And the key is to be aware of their operation in us. Be aware of both, of creating space. Jesus went into the wilderness after virtually every time he got done teaching or feeding or healing, he left. He went into the wilderness alone. And he restored himself in that space. And then what did he do? He must have felt really good. I mean, you know, to have that kind of consciousness and be out there with no interference. But he didn't remain there chilling for the rest of the time. He came back. He came back to do the work he was called to do. And he worked, and then he left. And he came back and worked some more and restored. He lived in that dance of the divine feminine and masculine. He lived in that balance and harmony that we saw in Larry and Donna's dance. It is to be aware of both of these aspects of your being. Pay attention. Honor them. Let them work within you rhythmically, harmoniously, in balance. Charles Fillmore expressed it in these words. If you want to read along silently while I read out loud, it's the first quote. He writes, "In spiritual silence," that's the space. In spiritual silence, man's realization is established in his heart. And he has the assurance that his prayer is answered and that the law of demonstration brings forth the fruit, the good. The realization is not only written in the soul, but in the intellect, whose seat of action is in the front forehead. The intellect always perceives what has taken place within and has power to retain its perception and to express itself accordingly. I love this summary sentence. Thus, the intellect serves spirit, and as it unfolds, it becomes more and more like spirit, and it becomes, in deed and in truth, the instrument of God. It is the spiritualization of the intellect, which is a tool of spirit.